The unexpected encounter, the mining vessel. Iron Maiden drifted silently through the asteroid belt of Kepler 442, its hull scarred from countless encounters with space debris. Captain Jake Morrison wiped grease from his hands as he emerged from the engine compartment, cursing the temperamental fusion reactor that kept their ship barely operational. His crew of 12 miners had been working the belt for 6 months, scraping together enough rare minerals to keep their families fed back. "On Earth! Contact on sensors, Captain!" called out Lieutenant Tom Bradley from the navigation console. His voice carried an edge that made Morrison's stomach tighten. "It's big, sir. Really big." Morrison moved to the viewport and felt his breath catch. The ship that emerged from behind the massive asteroid was unlike anything in human records. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its hull a seamless black surface that seemed to absorb light itself. Strange geometric patterns pulsed along its sides with an eerie blue glow that made his eyes water to look at directly. "Communications coming in," reported engineer Lisa Park, her fingers dancing over the alien frequency translators they'd jury-rigged from salvaged parts. "It's demanding something, sir." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that defied Morrison's understanding of biology. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the alien commander possessed 4 arms ending in razor-sharp talons. Its skin was a deep purple-black, covered in bony ridges that formed intricate patterns across its elongated skull. Most unsettling were its eyes, 6 of them, arranged in 2 rows, each glowing with an inner fire that spoke of intelligence and barely contained violence. "I am War Commander Zethrix of the Hegemony Fleet," the creature spoke, its voice a mixture of grinding metal and distant thunder. The translation software struggled to keep up with the alien's rapid, clicking syllables. "Your primitive vessel has entered restricted space. You will power down your engines, submit to boarding, and prepare for processing." Morrison looked around at his crew. These weren't soldiers or diplomats. They were blue-collar workers trying to make an honest living in the most dangerous job in the solar system. Park was barely 22, fresh out of engineering school. Bradley had 3 kids back home and a mortgage he couldn't afford to default on. They were just regular people caught in something way beyond their understanding. The alien commander leaned forward, its multiple eyes focusing on Morrison with predatory intensity. "You will kneel before the might of the hegemony, human. Your species' time of independence ends now. Submit, and your death will be swift." Morrison felt something bubble up from deep in his chest. Maybe it was the absurdity of the situation. Maybe it was the exhaustion from months of dangerous mining work. Maybe it was the thought of his daughter's smile waiting for him back on Earth. Whatever it was, it escaped as a sound that echoed through the bridge of the Iron Maiden. He laughed. Not a nervous chuckle or a scared giggle, but a full-throated, genuine laugh that seemed to catch everyone by surprise, including himself. The alien commander's expression shifted from imperious confidence to complete bewilderment. Its 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession, as if trying to process what it had just witnessed. Did this creature just express amusement at my command? Zethrix spoke to someone off-screen, its voice rising in pitch. Morrison wiped tears from his eyes, still chuckling. Sorry, it's just... You want me to kneel, buddy? I've been crawling through reactor coolant lines for the past 8 hours. My knees are already shot." The alien commander demanded my submission, but I laughed instead. Part 1. The Unexpected. Encounter the mining vessel Iron Maiden drifted silently through the asteroid belt of Kepler 442, its hull scarred from countless encounters with space debris. Captain Jake Morrison wiped grease from his hands as he emerged from the engine compartment, cursing the temperamental fusion reactor that kept their ship barely operational. His crew of 12 miners had been working the belt for 6 months, scraping together enough rare minerals to keep their families fed back on Earth. "Contact on sensors, Captain," called out Lieutenant Tom Bradley from the navigation console. His voice carried an edge that made Morrison's stomach tighten. "It's big, sir. Really big." Morrison moved to the viewport and felt his breath catch. The ship that emerged from behind the massive asteroid was unlike anything in human records. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its hull a seamless black surface that seemed to absorb light itself. Strange geometric patterns pulsed along its sides with an eerie blue glow that made his eyes water to look at directly. "Communications coming in," reported engineer Lisa Park, her fingers dancing over the alien frequency translators they'd jury-rigged from salvaged parts. "It's demanding something, sir." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that defied Morrison's understanding of biology. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the alien commander possessed 4 arms ending in razor-sharp talons. Its skin was a deep purple-black, covered in bony ridges that formed intricate patterns across its elongated skull. Most unsettling were its eyes, 6 of them, arranged in 2 rows, each glowing with an inner fire that spoke of intelligence and barely contained violence. "I am War Commander Zethrix of the Hegemony Fleet," the creature spoke, its voice a mixture of grinding metal and distant thunder. The translation software struggled to keep up with the alien's rapid, clicking syllables. "Your primitive vessel has entered restricted space. You will power down your engines, submit to boarding, and prepare for processing." Morrison looked around at his crew. These weren't soldiers or diplomats. They were blue-collar workers trying to make an honest living in the most dangerous job in the solar system. Park was barely 22, fresh out of engineering school. Bradley had 3 kids back home and a mortgage he couldn't afford to default on. They were just regular people caught in something way beyond their understanding. The alien commander leaned forward, its multiple eyes focusing on Morrison with predatory intensity. "You will kneel before the might of the hegemony, human. Your species' time of independence ends now. Submit, and your death will be swift." Morrison felt something bubble up from deep in his chest. Maybe it was the absurdity of the situation. Maybe it was the exhaustion from months of dangerous mining work. Maybe it was the thought of his daughter's smile waiting for him back on Earth. Whatever it was, it escaped as a sound that echoed through the bridge of the Iron Maiden. He laughed. Not a nervous chuckle or a scared giggle, but a full-throated, genuine laugh that seemed to catch everyone by surprise, including himself. The alien commander's expression shifted from imperious confidence to complete bewilderment. Its 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession, as if trying to process what it had just witnessed. Did this creature just express amusement at my command? Zethrix spoke to someone off-screen, its voice rising in pitch. Morrison wiped tears from his eyes, still chuckling. Sorry, it's just... You want me to kneel? Buddy, I've been crawling through reactor coolant lines for the past 8 hours. My knees are already shot." Part 2. Human Ingenuity Strikes Back. War Commander Zethrix's 6 eyes narrowed to burning slits as he processed the human's response. In his 3 centuries of conquest across 17 star systems, no lesser species had ever dared to show such disrespect. The bridge of his flagship Dominion's Edge fell silent except for the rhythmic humming of quantum processors analyzing the primitive human vessel. "Tactical assessment," Zethrix commanded, his 4 arms gesturing at holographic displays that materialized around him. Sub-Commander Vex, a smaller but equally intimidating member of the hegemony species, stepped forward with data streams flowing across his neural interface. "The human ship registers minimal threat parameters, War Commander. Single fusion reactor, outdated particle shields, no visible weapons systems. Their technology is approximately 400 cycles behind our lowest estimates." Morrison, still grinning despite the gravity of their situation, turned to his crew. "Park, how's our power situation? We've got maybe 6 hours of life support if we shut down everything non-essential. she replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. But, Captain, their ship could vaporize us without even charging their main weapons. Bradley. What's our cargo manifest looking like? The navigator pulled up their inventory on a flickering screen. 70 tons of refined titanium, 40 tons of rare earth elements, and... He paused, checking twice. 15 tons of processed uranium-238. Morrison's grin widened. Park, remember that modification you wanted to make to the mining laser array? The one I said was too dangerous? Engineer Park's eyes lit up with understanding. Captain, that's completely insane. The power feedback could tear our ship apart. But could it work? Maybe. For about 30 seconds before our entire electrical system overloads. On the alien vessel, Zethrix was growing impatient. Human, you will respond to my demands immediately. Your silence is an affront to the hegemony's authority. Morrison activated the communications array again, his casual demeanor unchanged. Yeah, about that. See, we're just simple miners out here trying to make a living. We don't really do the whole submission thing. It's not in our programming. Programming? Zethrix's head tilted at an unnatural angle. You speak as if you are artificial constructs. Nah, just stubborn. It's a human trait. Right, Bradley? Bradley, catching on to his captain's plan, nodded enthusiastically. Oh yeah, Captain. Remember the last time someone told us what to do? That didn't end well for them either. This was a complete fabrication, but Zethrix didn't know that. The War Commander's tactical computers began running probability scenarios based on potential human military encounters. Meanwhile, Park was quietly rerouting power from their life support systems to the mining equipment, her fingers flying over controls she'd modified during long, boring shifts in the asteroid belt. You claim to have defeated hegemony forces before? Zethrix's voice carried a note of uncertainty for the first time. Morrison shrugged. Different aliens, same attitude. They all think size matters. Thing is, we humans learned a long time ago that it's not about the size of the ship in the fight, it's about the size of the fight in the ship. The human captain's casual confidence was beginning to unnerve the alien commander. Zethrix had conquered. Species that wielded plasma cannons and antimatter warheads, but their leaders had always shown proper fear when faced with hegemony superiority. This human's behavior was completely outside his experience parameters. Sub-Commander Vex, deploy scanner drones. I want a complete analysis of their vessel's capabilities. 3 sleek probe ships detached from the massive alien vessel, their sensors probing every inch of the Iron Maiden. What they found puzzled them further. The human ship was indeed primitive, but its modifications were unlike anything in their databases. Jury-rigged systems, creative workarounds, and engineering. Solutions that shouldn't work but somehow did. War Commander, Vex reported. Their technology appears to be improvised. Their power distribution system has been modified in ways our computers cannot predict. Morrison watched the scanner drones through his viewport and smiled. Park, are we ready for the light show? Just say when, Captain. The mining laser gambit. The Iron Maiden's mining laser array had never been designed for combat. Its primary purpose was to carve through asteroid rock and separate valuable minerals from worthless debris. But engineer Lisa Park had spent months dreaming of modifications that could theoretically turn their industrial equipment into something more impressive. She'd run the calculations during her off shifts, treating it as an intellectual exercise rather than a practical application. Now, with alien scanner drones circling their ship like metallic vultures, those theoretical modifications were about to be put to their ultimate test. Power levels holding steady at 93%, Park reported, her hands dancing across control panels she'd rebuilt from scrap components. I've bypassed the safety limiters and rerouted auxiliary power from our communications array. War Commander. Zethrix watched his scanner drones complete their analysis, growing more perplexed with each data stream. The human vessel registered as primitive by every metric his computers could measure, yet something about their energy signatures didn't match the expected parameters for their technology level. Subcommander Vex, explain these anomalous readings. Vex studied the holographic displays with 4 of his 6 eyes, while the other 2 monitored potential human responses. War Commander, their power distribution appears to be unstable. Multiple systems show signs of recent modification, but the engineering principles are unfamiliar to our databases. On the human ship, Morrison was coordinating his crew with the calm efficiency of someone who'd spent years managing dangerous industrial operations. Bradley, I need you to calculate a firing solution for their scanner drones. Park, can you give me precision targeting? The mining laser wasn't built for accuracy, Captain. I can hit something the size of those drones, but just barely. That's all we need. One good shot to get their attention. Zethrix's patience finally reached its limit. Human vessel, your continued defiance is pointless. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the immediate termination of your crew. Morrison activated the communications array one more time, his voice carrying a note of mock concern. You know, Commander, I've been thinking about your offer. The whole submission thing sounds tempting, but we've got a small problem. What problem could your primitive vessel possibly present to the hegemony? Well, see, we're miners, and miners tend to be really good at making things explode when we want them to. Park's finger hovered over the firing control, waiting for Morrison's signal. The modified mining laser array hummed with barely contained energy, its focusing crystals glowing white-hot from the massive power surge she'd channeled through systems never meant to handle such loads. That sounds like a threat, human. Morrison's grin became positively predatory. Nah, Commander, that's a promise. Park, light him up. The mining laser erupted in a brilliant column of coherent energy that cut through space like a sword made of starlight. The beam, originally designed to slice through solid rock, struck the nearest scanner drone with devastating precision. The alien probe didn't just explode, it simply ceased to exist, vaporized in a microsecond by forces that should have been impossible for human technology to generate. The remaining 2 drones immediately changed course, their evasive maneuvers, revealing sophisticated AI programming. But Park had anticipated this, and her second shot caught the next drone as it attempted to flee back to the hegemony vessel. The third drone managed to reach the safety of its mothership's shields, but not before transmitting data that left Zethrix staring at his tactical displays in complete bewilderment. War Commander, Vex reported, his voice tight with concern. The energy output from their weapon exceeded our projections by 400%. How is this possible with their primitive technology? Morrison watched the alien ship's reaction with satisfaction. He could see weapon ports opening along its hull, but they weren't firing yet. The war commander was clearly trying to understand what he was dealing with before committing to a course of action. The thing about humans, Morrison said over the open channel, is that we're really good at making do with what we have. Your scanner drones probably told you our ship was no threat, but you know what they couldn't scan? Zethrix leaned forward, his 6 eyes focused intently on the human captain's image. What? Human creativity. See, every piece of junk on this ship has been modified, jury-rigged, or completely rebuilt by people who learned to fix things with whatever parts they could find. We don't have your fancy technology, but we've got something better. And what is that? Morrison's smile became almost gentle. We've got the desperate ingenuity of people who refuse to give up. The bluff that shook the galaxy. The bridge of the Dominion's edge hummed with tension as War Commander Zethrix processed the tactical implications of what he'd just witnessed. His ship's computers were running continuous analysis cycles, trying to understand how a primitive human vessel had just vaporized 2 of his most advanced scanner drones with what appeared to be mining equipment. Sub-Commander Vex, deploy additional reconnaissance units. I want a complete tactical assessment of their capabilities before we proceed. War Commander, Vex replied hesitantly. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans may possess defensive capabilities we haven't encountered before. Zethrix's forearms slammed against his command console, the impact resonating through the bridge like thunder. The hegemony does not retreat from primitive species. Deploy battle drones immediately. Meanwhile, aboard the Iron Maiden engineer, Park was frantically checking system readouts that painted an increasingly grim picture. Captain, the laser array is completely fried. That last shot burned out half our focusing crystals and melted 3 primary power conduits. Morrison nodded grimly. How long do we have on life support? Maybe 3 hours if we shut down everything except basic atmospheric processing. Lieutenant Bradley looked up from his navigation console with barely concealed panic. Captain, they're launching more drones. 12 of them this time. And they're bigger than the scouts. Morrison studied the approaching formation through their viewport. Each battle drone was roughly the size of a shuttle, bristling with weapon emplacements that glowed with ominous energy. They moved in perfect coordination, their flight patterns suggesting AI systems far more sophisticated than anything humanity had developed. Park, what do we have left in terms of offensive capabilities? Mining charges, cutting torches, and about 15 tons of raw uranium ore. The uranium's not refined enough for weapons-grade applications, is it? Park shook her head. Not unless you want to irradiate ourselves along with them. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, his mind racing through possibilities. Then, something clicked into place, a memory from his early days as an asteroid miner, when veterans had shared stories about creative problem-solving in the depths of space. Bradley, what's our current velocity relative to that big asteroid behind us? Approximately 40 meters per second, closing distance. And how much force would it take to destabilize an asteroid that size? Bradley ran quick calculations on his console. If we could create a significant impact at the right angle. Captain, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Morrison's grin returned, wider than ever. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the one you build. It's the one you find. He activated communications with the alien vessel. Commander Zethrix, I've got a proposition for you. The war commander's image appeared on their screen, his 6 eyes burning with barely contained fury. You will surrender, immediately, or my battle drones will reduce your vessel to component atoms. See? That's where you're wrong, Morrison replied casually. Because you're assuming we're trying to fight your drones. Then what are you attempting to accomplish? With this pointless resistance? Morrison gestured toward the massive asteroid looming behind them. Tell me, Commander, how good are your sensors at detecting gravitational anomalies? Zethrix paused, something in the human's tone triggering warning responses in his tactical programming. What gravitational anomalies? The ones we've been creating, for the past 6 months while we've been mining this rock. See, when you extract 70 tons of dense metals from the core of an asteroid, it tends to make the whole structure a little unstable. This was only partially true. The Iron Maiden had indeed been mining the asteroid, but their operations hadn't significantly compromised its structural integrity. However, Zethrix didn't know the specifics of human mining techniques, and Morrison was counting on that uncertainty. You're attempting to deceive me, Zethrix declared, but his voice carried a note of doubt. Am I? Park, show the commander our mining survey data. Park, catching on to Morrison's bluff, quickly pulled up legitimate geological scans of the asteroid. The data showed extensive mining tunnels and extraction points throughout the rock's interior, information that was accurate but didn't tell the whole story about structural stability. As you can see, Morrison continued smoothly, we've been very thorough in our operations. Now I'm betting your battle drones pack enough firepower to crack this asteroid wide open. The question is, do you want to deal with the debris field that's going to result when a 10-kilometer-wide rock breaks apart at high velocity? Zethrix studied the mining data with growing concern. His tactical computers were calculating impact, scenarios, and collision probabilities, and the results were troubling. If the asteroid did fragment during combat operations, the debris could pose a significant threat to his vessel. You would destroy yourself to deny us victory? Morrison shrugged. Wouldn't be the first time a human chose to go out on their own terms rather than submit to conquest. But here's the thing, Commander. We don't have to destroy ourselves. We just have to create enough chaos to slip away while you're dealing with 10 billion tons of high-velocity rock fragments. The bluff was audacious, desperate, and completely dependent on Zethrix's uncertainty about human capabilities and intentions. But as Morrison watched the alien commander's expression shift from confidence to calculation, he knew they'd bought themselves precious time. The birth of an legend war commander Zethrix found himself in an unprecedented situation. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never encountered a species that responded to overwhelming force with laughter, creative engineering, and what appeared to be either suicidal bravery or complete insanity. His tactical computers were providing conflicting assessments of human capabilities, and uncertainty was not a feeling the hegemony had prepared him to handle. Sub-Commander Vex, what is your analysis of their claims regarding the asteroid's structural integrity? Vex studied the holographic displays with growing unease. War Commander, our deep scan analysis confirms extensive excavation throughout the asteroid's core structure. If their mining operations have indeed compromised gravitational stability, weapons fire could trigger a catastrophic fragmentation event. And the tactical implications? Debris velocities could exceed 40 kilometers per second. Even our shields would be challenged by impacts at those speeds, and the sheer volume of fragments could overwhelm our defensive systems. Aboard the Iron Maiden, Morrison was coordinating his crew's next move while maintaining his facade of confident defiance. The truth was, their situation remained desperate. The mining laser was completely destroyed, life support was running on minimal power, and their bluff about the asteroid's instability would only work for so long. Park, can you give me any kind of propulsion? I can probably coax about 10%. Thrust from the main engines, but only for a few minutes before they overheat. Bradley, plot a course that puts us on the far side of the asteroid using its mass to block their sensors. Calculating now, Captain. Morrison opened communications. One final time. Commander Zethrix, here's my final offer. You let us leave this system peacefully, and we'll provide you with detailed information about human mining techniques. Consider it a gesture of goodwill between our species. Zethrix's response was immediate and filled with indignation. The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. Your choice, Morrison replied with a shrug. Park, initiate mining sequence 77 Alpha. This was pure theater. Mining sequence 77 Alpha didn't exist, but Park understood the performance and began activating systems throughout the ship, creating a symphony of mechanical sounds that suggested preparation for major industrial operations. The effect on the alien commander was immediate. Zethrix's 6 eyes widened as his sensors detected increasing energy signatures from the human vessel. His computers interpreted the activity as preparation for massive mining charges that could indeed destabilize the asteroid. Wait, Zethrix commanded, his voice tight with concern. Cease your operations immediately. Morrison paused, his finger hovering over controls that were actually connected to nothing more dangerous than their coffee maker. You want to reconsider our discussion? For the first time in his military career, War Commander Zethrix faced a tactical situation his training hadn't prepared him for. The humans were clearly outmatched in terms of technology and firepower, but their unpredictable behavior and apparent willingness to embrace mutually assured destruction created variables his strategic programming couldn't accommodate. Sub-Commander Vex, what are the probability calculations for successful conquest of this system if we eliminate the human vessel? 73% chance of mission success, War Commander. However, there is a 27% probability of significant damage to our vessel and a 12% chance of mission-critical system failures. These odds would normally be acceptable for hegemony operations, but Zethrix was beginning to understand that humans didn't follow normal probability models. Their behavior suggested capabilities and intentions that defied logical analysis. "Human, Captain?" Zethrix said slowly. "Your species intrigues me. Perhaps further study is warranted before full-scale conquest operations begin." Morrison felt his heart rate spike, but kept his voice steady. "That sounds almost like wisdom, Commander. Do not mistake tactical assessment for weakness. The hegemony will return to this system, and when we do, we will be prepared for human creativity." The massive alien vessel began to withdraw, its weapon ports closing and battle drones returning to their launch bays. Morrison watched through the viewport as the ship that could have destroyed them effortlessly disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the Iron Maiden alone among the asteroids. "Did we just survive that?" Bradley asked incredulously. "More than survive," Morrison replied, collapsing into his captain's chair as adrenaline finally gave way to exhaustion. "We just taught the galaxy's most successful conquerors that humans are too crazy to predict." Park looked up from her damage assessment reports. "Captain, what happens when they come back with a fleet?" Morrison's exhausted grin became something fiercer, more determined. "Then we'll have to be even crazier, but right now we need to get home and warn Earth that we're not alone in the universe anymore." As the Iron Maiden limped toward the edge of the system on failing engines, none of them realized that their encounter would become the stuff of legend. Within months, the story of the human captain who laughed at an alien commander's demands would spread throughout both human and alien space, marking the beginning of humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable and dangerous species. The age of human expansion into the stars had begun not with conquest or diplomacy, but with laughter, ingenuity, and the stubborn refusal to kneel before anyone or anything that demanded submission.